What dark secret are you hiding from everyone? I witnessed my fiance's suicide last year. I moved states afterwards and started a new life. My coworkers, clients, and new friends call me the sunshine of whatever room I walk into, but I'm completely dead inside, even though I choose to fake it. I resent them for not seeing how f up I am. I have a secret fantasy life, populated with imaginary friends. It started in grade school, and I have continued all my life. I am in my 50s now, and still prefer to be alone in my imaginary world instead of being with family or friends. I can't even tell my psychiatrist because I am afraid he will lock me up or give me drugs to make it stop. I'm convinced a neighbor poisoned our family dog. We got her when I was in 2nd grade. The poisoning happened when I was in college. They left notes on our door threatening to hurt the dog if she shit in their yard again, but our dog never went to their yard. Anyhow, she fell very ill very fast. She was in intense pain from her insides. She'd let out screams in pain. I don't know if you have ever heard a dog scream. That's the best I can describe it. It wasn't a cry, howl, or bark. It was a haunting scream. She couldn't get comfortable. I'd hold her to try to comfort her and she'd be okay for a few seconds and then another scream. We had to put her down. It was the only humane thing to do. I was devastated. It was like losing a sibling. It still hurts, and this was almost 20 years ago. Not long after that, our area had a natural disaster. The whole city was flooded. We moved back in pretty quickly because my dad was a carpenter, but most people took longer to return, including that neighbor. Let's just say, every snake, reptile, rat, or any other nasty creature that my crazy dad came across, and there was a lot due to the disaster, was brought straight to their yard and inside their house. For months, I smiled to imagine the house of horrors that they returned to. It still wasn't enough though. In another world I'd love to burn them inside their house, but alas, civilization. I make up lies about what I do on the weekend. Usually I don't do much and I'm very content with that. Others are always asking me what I'm doing and I never had anything to tell them. I make up lies to get out of phone calls or plans, saying I'm out of town or with friends. I love just being left alone. When I was a teenager, I worked at a novelty tourist shop near me. Being the idiot that I was, I stole a wad of cash from the store. It was $100 in ones. I told nobody, but they knew it was missing. Right about the same time, a coworker, who was always trying to get me fired, was telling someone she got about $100 in tips from her other job. They ended up firing her because they didn't trust that it wasn't her. 2 years ago, one of my best friends and I went halfsies on a ton of Xanax. On June 8th, we both took Xanax from the batch we split. I woke up, he didn't. No one knows I had anything to do with the drugs that killed him. And I don't know if I can ever bring myself to tell someone. It's not my secret, but my mom's, and I'm not hiding it from everyone. Just the person who it potentially matters to the most. When my mom was in high school, in the 60s, she had a long-term serious boyfriend named Jimmy. They were each other's first. They were together for years, and were planning on getting married. He went away to college. My mom stayed behind, but they were still together. You know what happened next? He cheated and got the new girl pregnant. He comes home to break the news to my mom. Abortion was not legal at the time. He basically says that he wants to be with my mom, but he has no choice but to marry this other girl. My mom was devastated. Here's the secret. My mom was also pregnant by him, but hadn't told him yet. She decided she wasn't ever going to tell him. Jimmy went on to marry the other girl and never knew my mom was also pregnant. She told me that she later threw herself down a flight of stairs to cause a miscarriage. My mom actually reconnected with Jimmy during the early days of Facebook. She didn't have an account, but asked me to look for him using mine. He was still married to the same person. My mom was married to my dad. They wrote to each other for a while using my account. Signed their messages saying, "I love you." My mom passed away a number of years ago. I think about this knowledge I have that Jimmy doesn't. This major life event thing that he doesn't even know happened. That could have changed the trajectory of many lives. I'm certainly not going to tell him. It's not my secret to tell. A man broke into my home about 10 years ago. Well, kind of. He knocked, I answered the door, and he pushed his way in. He spoke about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse and tried to extort me for protection, or he and his brothers of doom would come and kill me. He was huge. Ex-Navy, if he was to be believed. Drunk as hell, hand covered in blood holding a broken bottle. I was terrified. I told him to leave. He wouldn't. He was getting aggressive. I told him I would splatter his brains against the wall if he didn't. I didn't have a gun at the time. Anyway, he didn't leave. I went into my kitchen and grabbed a knife and sliced at him a few times. He staggered away, seemingly okay. I assumed he was all right, just wounded a bit. I never saw him again. A neighbor told me days later a man was found dead, some wounds on his arms. I can only guess he bled out, but I never got questioned. Somehow, there was a lot of blood in and around my house. I lived in a pretty seedy area, so I guess the cops just didn't care. The guy was apparently repeat criminal. I killed a man, at least indirectly, and have never told anybody. I had an IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, attack once and had to violently shit in a church grounds behind someone's car. Used underwear to wipe to and left that there. Not proud. I played basketball in middle school. One time we had a morning practice, and my mom thought it would be good for me to eat cinnamon rolls and chocolate milk beforehand. Later, during practice we were running laps and my stomach was cramping. I ran a couple more feet and literally shit myself. I ran to the bathroom and called my mom crying. My wife, her mom, and I bought a house about 2 years ago. Just from talking to the neighbors I gathered that the family who lived here before had a daughter that was mixed up with the wrong people. We had some random person knock on our door at night saying he needed gas. We are down a long driveway. No way you'd randomly walk up to our house to ask for help. I think he was looking for the people who used to live here. And then another time Sunday morning making pancakes for the family I get a knock on the door and it's for sheriff's officers saying they received a 911 call that hung up and it was from the house. We don't have a landline, and I assured them my wife and my 2-year-old did not make any call. They mentioned the name of the previous occupants, and I let them know we moved in earlier this year and they seemed okay with that and left. Anyways, I was doing some yard work and struck up conversation with the neighbor. He saw the police cars and asked what was up. I told him the situation and he just goes, "Oh yeah, that family was messed up. The cops were probably being cautious considering the shooting." "What shooting?" I asked. He kinda looks at me with a sad, worried face. "The shooting in your house." "Wait, what?" I say, truly baffled. He then proceeds to tell me that about 2 years before the father in the house confronted his daughter and boyfriend he didn't like and shot and killed the boyfriend in the house. Our state doesn't have a disclosure law, so we never knew. I was blown away. All the strange happenings kinda made sense now. He said the friends of the victim had kinda terrorized them for a while cause the police were taking so long to press charges, /tears. Midnight fireworks odd shit that the neighbors hated. I was shocked but just said that's crazy. But hey, do me a favor and never tell my wife or my mother-in-law about that. They're a little spooked by things like that. So the TRDL is that we live in a murder house and I'm the only one that knows. Not a huge secret in comparison to some of these answers, but I feel the guilt of it often. After my fiancée passed, I napped all the time for over a year. My aunt was calling me one day, and I just denied her call. Went back to napping. It was my aunt calling because my grandma, who was very sick with cancer, wanted to say happy birthday a day before my birthday. Grandma died the next day. I should have picked up the damn phone. My grandpa was stationed in Okinawa, Japan, during the Korean War. While in the Marines, he hooked up with a woman there, and she got pregnant. So, I have a Japanese aunt and a few cousins in Japan, whom I've never met before. Most people in my family think that my mother recently died suddenly from complications due to cancer, but she really died from the toxic effects of oxycodone, morphine, fentanyl and meth. Seems as though she just had herself a secret death party. In middle school I made a smoking pipe out of copper pipe just for fun. I know you should not smoke out of copper, as the fumes are potentially toxic. My stepdad took it from me and started using it. He smoked with it for years. I hated him for physically abusing me, so I never said anything. It's now 30 years later and he was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's and likely only has a few years to live. I hope he rots in hell. I don't know if it had any effect, but I like to think the copper pipe played a role in his sickness as karma for being an asshole. I've been accessory to both my parents' infidelity At age 5 my mother cheated on my dad while he was deployed, and my brother told me what was happening and that I shouldn't tell anyone. My father slept with his secretary 2 years later, for a few years, and would even bring me on dates with her, telling my mother we were going to the movies. He took me to her house and had her roommate watch me while they went out or just hung out in her room. They're still married. I don't know if either know the other did the thing, or if they still are doing the thing. I sometimes wonder if a bunch of people in an elevator are gonna stab me all at once. I've been an addict my entire adult life. I used to drink all day every day. Before work, at work, and after work. I'd occasionally fall asleep on my lunch break or leaving work and have to make up some illness to friends and fam who were concerned. Today marks 185 days sober.